I'm excited to be here with Anthony DeRusso. Just a bit of a background. My name is Nada St.Germain, and we are here to talk about CoQ10. But what I want to start first, Anthony, is I'm just going to go back 60 years ago when Neolife launched or introduced tran and grain concentrate to the company. And those are the essential lipids in phytosterols from grain, like your wheat, rice, and soy, that are no longer in our diet anymore. And we know the importance of those essential lipids and the role they play in cell function, energy, and just filling the gaps and making our body work better. So tran and grain concentrate, again, has been around for 60 years, and we need this, and it's no longer in our food supply. And it does play a role in energy, mental clarity, hormonal balance. But now we're going to talk about the CoQ10 because for years people have been asking us, why doesn't Neolife have a CoQ10? And then we launched the CoQ10 last year, and it's a product that I find very complicated to explain. So I'm asking you, with your background being a massage therapist and understanding the anatomy in the body and how it works, so I know you're going to do a great job in helping people understand why we need CoQ10 and why the Neolife CoQ10.
Okay, I will
Where's
try.
yours?
Okay.
So CoQ10.
CoQ10, you ready?
What does it do in the body?
Okay. So, I mean, CoQ10 has a lot of different functions, but the main one, and what we're talking about today, is its role in energy production.
Right.
So before we understand that, we kind of have to go back and talk a little bit about digestion. So when we ingest our food, it's broken down into their most simplest forms. And by that I mean carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Okay? And mostly in the small intestine, they're absorbed into the bloodstream. The bloodstream will then, or the circulatory system will transport them to all the cells within our body and deposit those nutrients there. Okay? Yeah. So we have to start with that.
With digestion.
So let's start with, let's say, a glucose molecule.
Okay.
So when a glucose molecule enters a cell, there's a series of steps. Scientists will call it a biochemical pathway. And it's kind of like a flow chart. And glucose will change and alter into different forms. And things are added and things are subtracted. So this is what's happening with those steps. Okay. Now eventually the glucose molecule will enter another structure within the cell called the mitochondrion, which is a fancy word.
Mitochondrion, yes.
Mitochondrion.
That was I found a little complicated.
We often say, you'll often see in the literature mitochondria, that's the plural, and that's more accurate because there's more than one within a cell.
Okay.
So the mitochondria. And the mitochondria, think of them as like a factory. They're the factory that produces a molecule known as ATP. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. Don't worry about that. That's sciencey. ATP.
Okay.
ATP is the fuel source for our cells.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter what cell you're talking about. This is universal within our body. Okay. So it can be a heart cell, a muscle cell, a brain cell. They all require glucose and they all will try to produce ATP. Okay. ATP is the fuel that cells require to do certain functions. I think Dr. Liz Applegate at our convention last year, she talked about ATPs being like currency. Okay. So in order for a cell to do something, it kind of has to like, here's $1. Okay. So it needs ATP to perform a function. Okay. So that's where we're at. And this is where CoQ10 kind of enters the mix at this mitochondrial level. Okay, so right now we're in this series of pathways, the pathway, okay. Eventually that glucose molecule will get to the mitochondrial membrane. That's another big word. Yeah. Just as cells have a membrane, mitochondria have a membrane as well. And that's where CoQ10 is embedded. That's where it's located, within the mitochondria of our cells. So kind of really far away. Right. Okay. Yeah. And CoQ10 is involved in a process at this location called the electron transport chain. I'm not going to get into it. Okay. I know. But this is the exact location where glucose will yield or produce an abundant amount of ATP. So CoQ10 is required, it's essential.
Okay, so it's something that we need.
It's
and
something
it's
that
critical.
we need at this stage so that our cells, or the mitochondria, can produce an abundant amount of ATP for our cells. So you can kind of imagine that if we don't have enough CoQ10, we're not going to have enough ATP produced. Our cells are not going to be able to perform their functions. Okay? And again, it doesn't matter, it can be the heart. So think of a heart cell. The heart won't be able to do its function optimally. And you can even kind of like expand that into like a human being. You can start to see the manifestations and the symptoms, like the fatigue. The tiredness, headaches. So does that make sense?
No, that's awesome. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
It's very sciencey, but
now what happens to us as we age? Like when do we start to kind of need CoQ10, or our body kind of is depleted, or it's not there anymore?
Right. Well, science has told us that our optimal levels, we peak at like late teens, early 20s.
Early 20s, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and then it starts to decline so that by about our 40s, 50s, it's about half that. And Nana, the other day I actually if you think about it, that's when people start to say, I always remember now, like people say, oh, when I hit my 40s, things just started to decline.
Go downhill.
I started to get aches and pains, and I thought about it the other day. I'm like, it's possible. Is it a CoQ10 issue? Like, it's a
because the cells aren't functioning. They're not functioning.
They don't have their optimal levels of CoQ10. Not enough CoQ10. Not enough ATP, and
not enough energy, and all the other symptoms. Right.
So then, unfortunately, this decline continues. So that once we reach our 60s, 70s, 80s, it's now less than half of what we had when we were 18, 20, 21. So unfortunately, so that just kind of tells us of the need for supplementation.
Now, supplementation, we've been hearing CoQ10 for years. It's been around for years, and people have been asking us, now why the Neolife CoQ10?
So our Neolife CoQ10, it's naturally sourced. And I got to give credit to our amazing scientific advisory board. Because, and I remember hearing John Miller talk about this, that they knew about CoQ10 way back when it was coming out with other companies, but Neolife just would not manufacture it or produce it until they could find a natural source, which they, until recently, they have.
Which is really exciting.
Which is really exciting.
Yeah, and you're taking the product, and it's been
it's taken, just been taken about a month. And I've seen drastic improvements. I mean, when I started with Neolife, and to this day, I still do the Pro Vitality, still do the Neolife Shake, and that made a huge improvement at the time, which was about 3-4 years ago now. And now I just added this, and this just kind of gave me a little bit of a boost.
Excellent.
So sorry, I just want to add. So this will be, I think this is just going to be a regular part of my Neolife repertoire from now on. So.
And I think at this point, as far as we know, it's the only natural CoQ10 on the market. I have not found a product like it. And it doesn't, there's other things in there though that make it work better. If you want to explain maybe some of the other ingredients that are in there that make it unique and to do with bioavailability and absorption and things like that.
Bioavailability is, I guess it's a sciencey word or the pharmaceutical word for how readily it is absorbed in the body. Because no matter, like even other products, like even food, some things just pass right through us, and some of them are absorbed a lot better into our digestive tract, into our circulatory system, etc. They get to the cells. So in researching the CoQ10 product, the other components that the SAB researched and added to the product, I'm not going to go into them, but I'll just list like something like L-cysteine and the tocotrienols, the vitamin E, and the phytonutrients and lipids and sterols. These are all things that will aid in the bioavailability and the absorption of the CoQ10. And they also protect it. Like I said, so the CoQ10, we require it at the level of the mitochondria, so it's even smaller than the cell. It's such a far distance from when we ingest it
Okay.
that it needs to be protected.
Okay.
It needs to reach its target destination of the mitochondria, and that's what some of those other components will do. It'll increase the absorption of it, but also protect it so that it gets to the actual target site.
Excellent.
So,
yeah, so that's what makes this product really unique.
Mhm.
And I know we talked about, is it when the most important time where it's really needed also is when people are taking different medications.
That's right.
Right, so
That's
the statin drugs and heart medication.
That's right, yeah.
Because it stops the body from utilizing?
It's production.
Production of
So
CoQ10?
So yeah, I mean, drugs can obviously affect so many different biochemical processes in the body, but especially statins and CoQ10, there's a really close relationship there.
Right.
So statins or anti-cholesterol drugs,
yeah.
I think Lipitor or Crestor, I'm trying to think of the names, but anyway, anti-cholesterol drugs, yeah, they will stop the production of cholesterol, but unfortunately, it's the same biochemical pathway that produces CoQ10.
Right.
So by taking statins, you're also blocking the production of CoQ10.
Okay.
So again, another sign that supplementation is needed for those individuals.
And that's something doctors have known for years, because they are recommending, their patients that they take a CoQ10 if they're on statins. So that's something that's been known. But again, the Neolife CoQ10 is a better choice because of the natural component and the science and all those other nutrients that are there to help with the bioavailability.
Right. And it's unfortunate that people that are taking drugs, I mean, how do I say it? It's affecting something that's positive, like CoQ10.
Right.
So, yeah, that's the unfortunate thing.
So it's important for people to supplement whether they are on medication or they're not on medication.
Right.
So it's just it's a necessary supplement again to fill the gap.
Yeah.
Right, which has always been the Neolife philosophy, is filling the gap.
That's right. To
give us optimal health at the cellular level.
Yeah, and you know what, Nada, one more thing, it's about all our cells.
All our cells.
It's not just
heart, liver, it's brain, everything.
This applies to CoQ10 is in the mitochondria and all the cells, the trillions of cells within our body. So that's why supplementation and that proper, adequate levels of CoQ10 are so vital.
So important.
So
I really want to thank you for taking the time to explain that, because it is a complicated product. Even though I've been with the company for 29 years, I'm like, okay, I got to explain this product. But I really appreciate your knowledge.
Oh, my pleasure.
And it's great having you part of Cindy and Mike's team and our team here in Canada.
Thank you.
Thank you.